Okay. Sec. Little sec. There we are. Thank you, guys. Well, so as I was mentioning you, the plan for tonight's class is to start with our theoretical application of the, excuse me, with our theoretical explanation of the second task of the writing section. And you remember that, well, we've seen some general aspects already. So let us get into the very important issue now, to discuss the second task of the writing section, okay? So let me please open my presentation, and then we can start immediately. Well, that's great. So just to refresh your minds a little bit, you know that the writing section is very interesting one because it allows you to reflect how good you are thinking in English, right? Because sometimes when we are speaking, it's more our social skill and ability, the one that is displayed. Now, the thing here is that you're going to be writing, as you know, and depending on what modality of the exam you're taking, of course, your means in order to write are going to change as well. Because as you know, in the IBT version and home IBT version, you get the chance to listen, to write down your essays using a keyboard. But whenever you're taking the PBT version, the scenario is a little bit different. You write your essays with your hands. Although I, of course, doubt very much somebody is going to go and undertake that, well, version because it's not very much common in South American countries. Anyways, as you know, the writing section is designed to measure your ability to write English in an academic setting, which is very important. You're expected to be able to present your ideas in a very clear and well-organized manner. And as you know, we have two different essays we are going to write in this section. The first one is an integrated essay that we have discussed before a little bit, and that we're going to continue discussing throughout the week. And the second one is the independent essay that is going to be our attention focus tonight, because we're going to be talking about this second essay, which I know you're going to find very, very much engaging and also very interesting to perform on. So, yeah, as I say, we're going to discuss the independent essay. And well, we're going to get into that. Okay, so remember, as I always tell you, when you are in your common day, when you're living your daily life, don't forget to change your keyboard from Spanish, probably Latin American Spanish, Mexico Spanish sometimes, into American English, because when you change it, into American English, you are then forcing yourself to practice for the TOEFL exam writing section, given that you are the one who is going to write down your essay using that configuration on the exam. So please don't let the exam trick you, and well, don't be overconfident here. Trust me that it's important to practice with this configuration before you actually write down on the exam and you feel comfortable with that modality. That is to say, writing with this American keyboard and doing everything automatically, okay, with your hands. Well, having said that, then please let us go and talk about our important topic tonight. Well, so as I told you, we are going to discuss the second essay. In the writing section, as I said, you merely have to write on two essays. And this second one is called independent essay. Okay, independent essay, that's the name. And for most of you, it's going to be very familiar, okay? Well, because we've listened to a concept very similar in the past, but for those of you who are not very much familiarized with this concept, don't worry, we're going to explain it. So the thing here is, notice that it's called independence. Why independence? You remember that sometimes in the TOEFL exam, we have to receive information from ETS, right? And that information, let's say, is the only thing we can talk about in our responses, is the only thing we can consider when responding to several questions we are asked during the exam. Now, when the title of the examination, or when the title of the task in the TOEFL exam is independent, whether it is independent speaking or independent writing or independent question, that word always reflects the particular scenario that happens during this exam, in which you are actually now released from that limitation and boundary. You are not longer required to respect material they give you. But now you are independent. That is to say, you are going to write down and contribute to this question and to this response. And remember that for this question, your essay is your response, right? And the question, as I'm going to explain, is very simple. So in this question, you can actually contribute, as I say, to the response with everything you want. You can talk about your own experiences. You can talk about your knowledge. You can talk about, well, data that you have available to you because of your work, because of your research, whatever. Here is about what you can contribute to the essay. It's not about respecting the outlines and material they give you. Okay, that's the reason why this is called independence. So please, as I say, this is the moment, the perfect moment for you to express everything you ever wanted to say in English, right? You can talk about your life, talk about your family's life, talk about you, talk about your career, talk about your knowledge, talk about your habits, stuff like that. This is the time for doing so, okay? And you're going to understand and comprehend why. Well, let us read this together. It says the second task asks you to write an essay in which you state, you explain, and you support your opinion on an issue, okay? You have 30 minutes to write down that essay, okay? And your objective is to be super secure about your position and to be convincing. I want you to look at the picture I have here on my screen. This character, for many of you, may be very familiar, very much known and famous, very acclaimed political commentator nowadays. His name is Ben Shapiro. And well, I didn't bring him here to discuss politics or stuff like that, of course. The reason why I brought him here is because he is a very famous debater. People claim he's one of the best debaters in the world, okay? So I want you to think that in this essay, you are undergoing a debate. That is to say, you are debating people. Remember that debates are platforms, are, let's say, shows. We can talk about them as shows because they are public very normally. And well, basically they are platforms, as I say, in which you go about presenting your ideas on a particular matter and you defend your position, your perspective, your opinion on that issue, as I say, competing against an opponent. For example, let's say that you believe the word is plain, let's say, just as an example. So if you were in a debate, you will have to present ideas and arguments and reasons to demonstrate to people, to your audience, that you are right and the earth is actually plane. Nonetheless, maybe you have an opponent, as I said, that believes the world is round. That is to say, well, it's having the shape of a sphere. Now, if you believe that, or excuse me, if your opponent believes so, then he's going to also counteract and tackle your arguments, and he's going to discuss against you, etc. But what I want you to understand is you, as a debater, don't merely present your idea and wait for people to believe you. That's how, or that is not how a debate works. The way a debate works is that you present your ideas, yes, you show to these people, to your audience, what you believe, but you're also forced, let's say, we are responsible for accounting in favor of your beliefs and perspectives. You have to demonstrate why you are right, and people who think different to you are wrong. Okay, that's a very important thing you have to know here. So, yeah, as I say, like for those of you who are just joining us, we are discussing the writing section, and we're getting into one of the essays you have to write for this part of the exam. Because as I said before, in the writing section of the TOEFL exam, you have to write 2 different essays. And one of them is called the independence essay. Because what you have to do is to read a statement they give you and to offer your opinion on that issue. And then you have to defend your position or perspective on the very same issue you gave your opinion about. That is to say, you have to debate somehow because you are going to explain, expose your beliefs, your perspectives, and then you're going to defend that by using arguments and illustrations, okay? Don't worry, you're going to understand this way better when I get into the simulator, okay? It's a very simple thing. Well, by the way, maybe you're wondering, how many words do I have to write for this essay? It would be excellent if you can reach 450 words for this part of the test, okay? In order to do this, you will have to write down 15 words per minute approximately. Yes, there is a question, I think. No? Okay, I think there wasn't. Great. So I said like, great if you can write 450 words for this part of the exam. That is to say, this essay, it will be fantastic if it contains 450 words. But the minimum quantity of words you have to write down are, or is in this case, 300 words. Okay, you have to write down at least 300 words, and these 300 words, as I say, are the minimum. So you, for example, if you're trying to get a very high qualification on the TOEFL exam, of course, it's not what you're going to aim at, right? Because if you're aiming to get more than 105, as we discussed some time ago, that it's very just 5% of people who take the exam manage to get more than 105. So if you want to be in that selected group of people, then of course you're not going to go for the minimum. You want more than that. So as I say, it's better if you write down 450. That will be excellent. But minimally, you have to write down at least 300. Okay, know that. So as I say, you have to normally write 5 or 15 words per minute, which is quite possible. Trust me. And even if you're not very good at typing, I can tell you out of my experience that it's very easy to improve on that skill, because when I started to prepare myself for the TOEFL exam, I was also terrible at typing. And I started to use some websites that were super helpful to me. I just want to recommend them to you, typeandchess.com. And the other one, sense/land.org. Those websites are fantastic, okay? They offer you typing exercises. You can actually check out how many words you're writing per minute. It helps you with your, as I said, with your typing exercises and tasks and challenges. It's fantastic. And apart from this, how can you improve your typing velocity? Well, the obvious way, by practicing. Instead of writing things on your cell phone, get into your computer, and if you're going to chat, for example, with your friends, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, then chat, but writing in your computer. That way, at the same time, you're doing your normal things, but you're improving at typing. Trust me, practice here is tremendously important, okay? So, well, having said that then, let me show you this on the simulator, okay? But I want to give you some time. If you can, or if you have any question until this point, maybe. As I go to the simulator. Okay. Great, let me show you this. No questions on this, guys? Is there anything that I could clarify here? Great, so let me show you, okay? Let me show you the following. So when you enter this essay, as I say, this is the second essay you have to write down for the exam. You have to write two, all right? The first one, we're going to discuss it later, but this is the second essay you write down. And as I said, this essay is called independent essay, because you are going to relay, relay, yes, on yourself, okay? You're not going to be relaying on what ETS tells you, but here you can contribute to the essay with any type of information, data, experience you have, okay? So rely on yourself. Here it's about you and what you can contribute to the exam, all right? So this is the menu. It's a simulator, so it's going to be very similar when you enter the exam on the actual day. If you are taking the IBT version or the home IBT version, exactly the same, you're going to get something very similar on your screen, okay? So look at my left side. Here, you're going to find a set of instructions. Not very important. I already explained this to you. You're going to write down an essay for ETS. It must contain minimally 300 words. Okay, that's the minimum. And well, the quality of your writing is going to be evaluated, of course, your grammar, your orthography, the literary resources you use, semicolons, colons, parentheses, slashes. I mean, everything is allowed here. And if you correctly use those literary resources, well, certainly you're going to get higher scores. You have how much time? I think I didn't mention that. How much time do you have for writing this essay? You have 30 minutes. Okay, that's very important. When they let you have this menu on your screen and you see this, there's going to be a chronometer right here on your corner that, as you can see, for example, in this case, my chronometer is going upwards, right? It's going like 1:45, 46. But on the exam is the other way around, which is 30, 29, right? 29 and 58, 29 and 57, 29, 56, 55. It goes backwards, basically. So if that's the case, you're going to be able to see how much time you have to write in the essay here on your chronometer. right corner or in the left corner. Anyways, they can be, or the chronometer can be placed in any of those corners. Now, apart from that, as I said, here you have the set of instructions, not necessary to read, you know what to do. What is going to be appearing below that is the only thing you have to respect. As I said, this is an independent thing. You can write about whatever you want. Your response is free, but you have to respect the topic of the essay. That's the only thing you have to respect, the topic. What's the topic? They normally give it in a question type. Look at it. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Children over the age of 15 should be allowed to vote. Okay, so notice that in this case, right, they're giving you the chance to write down this essay about this question. So they give you the opportunity to, as I said, to write down and to say whether you agree or disagree with that in your essay. Okay, it's a very simple thing. Is there any question, guys? Please, I want to listen to you right now. Any question about this? Daniela, Lucia, Jasmine, Lenny, Bla, Rodrigo. Is there any question about this part of the exam so far? No questions? Okay, no questions then. Great. So let me then continue. Okay. So apart from this question, as I say, you have to write down the essay, giving your opinion on this, whether you agree, whether you disagree, if you believe it's just this is wrong. That is to say, you dislike the idea of children over the age of 15 voting. You have to write down your essay responding to this question. Where are you going to write it? Here. Notice that you have a reply box. Here you write it. And how you write it? Well, very simply. You write it here on this reply box. And as you can see, well, here you can write down with your keyboard, right? You say, for example, I don't know, right, whatever, right? With regard to the topic or common phrase. I don't know, I believe, right? I believe that, whatever, that children should not have the right to vote, whatever, right? That's the thing. So notice that when you do this, it's a very simple thing, okay? Now, what I want you to notice is that below your reply box, you'll get this word counter, okay? Look at it. It says 16 in this case, all right? And that's because I've written at this point how many words? 16, okay? And this is how you're going to check out how many words you've written. So when you, for example, manage to get 300, if you want to stop at that point, you can do it. You see, okay, I wrote 300 words. That's the minimum. So you can say, well, I don't want to write down more than this. Fantastic. You stop there and you start reviewing your essay. Nonetheless, if you want to write down more, this word counter is going to be, let's say, the way to calibrate that, okay? You're going to calibrate how many words you're writing by looking at this word counter, all right? Okay, apart from that, you also get here some buttons that in this case are not available here, but it's because it's a simulator, it's not perfect. Copy and paste, okay? So you can, of course, copy and paste, but in this part of the exam is, I would say, useless, given that you don't have anything to copy and paste, right? The only thing you could do would be to call yourself. Like, for example, if you said this at some point in your essay and you want to recall you, like make a mention to yourself, you could say, right, as I said before, comma, and then you start your quotation, sorry. And then you could just say, well, as I said before, and you take this, right? But I wouldn't say it's a very good technique right now because what use could it have to call yourself, right? Anyways, better if you don't use those buttons right now. The button that could be very useful would be one that says undo, okay? And that button undo is the same that Control Z. So for example, if you make a mistake and you erase everything, you can just press undo here. There's going to be a button here on this upper part of the menu. And if you press it, well, your last action is going to be undone. That way you can just, well, recover whatever you lost, okay? Those are the buttons that are going to appear here on the exam. And yeah, and pretty much is that. It's the reply box, the word counter, I say, in order for you to check that out, and here are the three buttons, okay? And now the only thing we have to discuss is how to write down this essay, which I'm gonna teach you right now, okay? I have a template and a structure to give you, and then you're going to be able to understand that. Any question, anyways, with regard to the menu, what you have to do, anything here, guys? Please, I listen to you. Questions?
I have a question, teacher.
Yes, Daniela, please.
We can give, for example, one argument in favor and two against, or we are forced to be only against or only in favor.
Okay, great. It's a fantastic question. So personally, I definitely recommend you to go for just one view. That is to say, to defend a particular perspective and not to offer an essay that goes in a middle ground, right? Because what you're talking about is a middle ground. Like you like the idea because of some reasons, but you also dislike it. So you could compose an essay saying, well, this topic has negative and positive aspects, which is what many people do. Nonetheless, I personally believe, and this is a belief that I held very strongly, that that when you are reading these topics and you look at the way that ETS constructs how they are constructing these topics, how it constructs, excuse me, the question, I think it's forcing you to merely choose one perspective and to defend that perspective alone instead of offering middle ground essays. So I personally would recommend you to merely write one, because apart from respecting the outlines they give you, I think it's way more consistent because at the end, what you wouldn't like to get in your essay would be ambiguity, right? Because when you write an ambiguous essay, in which it's very difficult to follow what opinion you actually have, that is not going to be very good on the reviewer side. So what you want is to, as I say, compose an essay that remains consistent and it's very easy to follow and understand. And I think that when you defend one perspective, one opinion, you whether go here, I dislike the idea or I like it, one of those options. If you defend that you like the idea, fantastic, your essay is going to be very understandable. And the same if you write an essay, instead of defending that you like the idea, that you dislike it, but it's going to be super easy to follow because you are specifically saying that you don't like the idea, right? But instead, if you write an essay saying that I like it and I also dislike it, it's like ambiguous, right? It's difficult to follow, to understand. So I would definitely recommend you guys to choose that perspective here and to write as many arguments as you can for that perspective and not even mention the other one. Do not talk about the other one. If you're going to do it, if you're going to talk about the other option, do it for criticizing it, like as if they were your opponents. As I said before, think about this as if you were debating, right? So if you're going to talk about the other position, it's because you want to tackle it. You want to say, hey, they are wrong, I'm right. Okay, that's what you want to do. Okay, fantastic. Well, apart from that, let's come back then. So no questions, right, about the menu or any other thing? Okay. So I have something for you. Let's go to your WhatsApp groups, okay? I'm sending a very important document right there. Here for you, here for you, and here for you guys. Okay. So get this, please. If you go and open that document, you can follow me. And when you open it, you're gonna be able to do this, okay? Follow me. Beautiful. So look at this. This is the structure or the template for the second essay. That is to say the one that we are analyzing right now, the independent essay. And here is how you can write this essay very effectively, following the idea, as I say, to offer your opinion on that subject, offer your opinion on this question they give you, and to defend it, right? Because that is what you have to do. You just give your opinion on this topic, and you start defending it as if you were debating people, right? So here you have how to write it. We have the template with an introduction, with a body, with a conclusion, with all the sentences and the elements you have to include. And here below, I wrote an essay for you discussing a question. And I used the template that, as I say, it's right here in the first page. I used the template for you to know how to apply all these things into your own essays. When you write them down for me later on, you're going to be able to, as I say, write down fantastic essays following the template because you'll know how to do it. Okay. So we're going to analyze this template and my essay right now for you to understand how to write that down this essay. Now, before I start to talk about that, I want to show you what topic I wrote about, because as I say, the only thing you need to write down this essay is a topic, right? And in this case, the essay that I wrote for you to see how to apply the template is this. This is the topic. Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. Do you agree or disagree with the following statements? This is the question I was responding when I wrote the essay you have gotten right now, okay? So please, as I say, notice that in my essay, I'm going to be giving my opinion on this topic. And I want to tell you something in advance. I went for the position that indeed, reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. That is to say, I'm going to defend that I agree with this statement, and I say personally, reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. So you're going to see how I explain that in my essay, how I managed to convey my opinion very rapidly, in a very organized manner. And you're also going to be able to see how I defend it, how I argue in favor of my own position so that I can account in favor of it. Okay? So please, as I say, this is the question, and you have to know beforehand that I'll be writing in favor of this particular position, that I agree with reading being more educational than watching movies or TV. Okay, that's my position. That's how I wrote my essay. So let's see and check it out. And well, you can also learn here. Very good. Okay. So the first part of the template, as you can see, is an introduction. All right. And this introduction notice contains 3 different elements you have to include. Notice that in this case, I've highlighted the 3 of these elements with a different color. Fact number 1 is highlighted with yellow, fact number 2 with red, and this connector accordingly with blue or light blue. Why did I do so? Because if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to notice that in my essay, when I used the same sentences and elements, I also highlighted them with the same colors for you to notice how you apply all these elements within an actual essay, right? And not to make it just super theoretical. But I want to show you how you can actually apply this thing to real essays, okay? So as I say, the fact number 1 is going to be with yellow, the fact number 2 with red, it's the connector with light blue, so that you can follow this in your own essays, okay? Well, so what is fact number 2 and fact number 1 and fact number 2? Which are, as you can see, the first elements of your introduction. Remember that in this essay, what you're trying to do is to defend an idea, right? So in order to begin with that process of defending your idea, the first thing you're going to do in the introduction of your essay is to start giving some information and data you are personally aware of that supports your position. I repeat, you're going to offer 2 different pieces of information or data that you are personally aware of in order to support your own position, okay? Here, notice that I'm not giving my position yet. I'm just going to mention 2 different pieces of information, I repeat, for you to argue in favor of your position. What were my 2 facts in this case? Remember that the position I'm defending is that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. So you're going to notice how the facts that I wrote, because I was conscious of that at that time, are in favor of my position. Of course, you're not going to expose information against you, right? But in favor of you. So notice how I wrote my essays. So in this case, the first fact, the fact number 1 that I mentioned was this one. It has been scientifically demonstrated decades ago that people who read 5 books per year have a wider vocabulary than the average people. So look at this. This is the first piece of information I'm displaying here in my introduction in order to argue in favor of my position right from the beginning. And notice that even when I'm doing so, I'm not saying what I think yet. I'm not giving my opinion yet, right? I'm just mentioning and suggesting very relevant information to what is going to later represent my position, okay? So notice that is what I mean by fact. This is a piece of information. And by the way, you don't have to quote that information or something, and as you do, right, in the university and say, according to Harvard research number 55. No, you don't have to do so. You just have to mention the information because remember, this is a personal essay. So you're not actually requested to quote scientific articles or research papers or stuff like that. No, it's just a very personal essay, all right? So that's the reason why you don't need to actually quote or to mention what sources you are deriving this from. No, just mention your information and you can actually make it up as well if you like. So notice that this is my fact number one in favor of my position, right? Now, the second fact. Likewise, TV has been widely recognized as destructive by several medical experts and researchers. So notice that until this point, I have already written two of my elements within the introduction, fact number one and fact number two. But as I say, are just two pieces of information that, although I have not mentioned my opinion yet, are supporting it. Okay, notice. And when I have finalized with my two facts, what you do next? You write down this connector accordingly, which means, right, por consecuencia, accordingly. And here, when you write down accordingly, notice that I have it here, right, in my essay, accordingly. Here, you write down your opinion. Here is where you must yes or yes offer your perspective and view on the question they have asked you. You have to do it right now, here, right after you write down accordingly. The next sentence must be your opinion, okay? Trust me that you do want to include it here, because if you include your opinion later on in your essay, everything is going to be a mess. It's going to be chaotic because nobody's going to understand what you're talking about. But if you start with your opinion and perspective right here, when you write down accordingly, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be noticeable what you are defending and that you are doing it right from the beginning so that it's understandable, okay? So notice what was my opinion in this case. I wrote, accordingly, TV is certainly not more educational than reading. As a matter of fact, and here I'm just complimenting, right, my own decision to complement more, to offer more information. As a matter of fact, reading is absolutely superior to any TV education. Now notice in this case what I'm doing. I'm offering a very compelling and clear opinion. I don't want ambiguity. I don't want the reviewer, the person who reads this essay, right, and qualifies you to read this and say, but I don't understand. What is he arguing for? You don't want that. But you want the reviewer to understand what is going to be your position in the rest of the essay. And you want him to understand that right here. That's the reason why, as I say, please make sure to offer a very clear and concise opinion. When you make long opinions and you write 3 sentences explaining your opinion, the only thing you do is to make it more difficult to follow. But when you write down a very simple, you can actually write down 2 sentences if you want, explaining your perspective and position in a very simple manner. That's fantastic because it's understandable. You manage to grasp the idea, okay? That's how you have to do it. And as I tell you, defend just one position. Don't be ambiguous or in the middle ground path. Don't do that, okay? Just write, grab a position and defend it. So this is how you write down the introduction. And this is all the introduction, as you can see. And when you finalize that, you can add this, it's optional. This opinion is due to the following motives. It's a transition phrase, but it's optional. So I said, you can just write down this or not. And this is how you write down the introduction. Notice that I've been following the template. Fact number 1, fact number 2, accordingly, and I explained you how to do it. Is there any question, guys, about this introduction? Anything that I could clarify about this part? Please tell me.
Yes, teacher. In the first fact, could be also false information. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, you can make it up. And remember that the people who read these essays, they're just English professors. They are not scientists. They are not linguistic experts. They are not researchers or stuff like that. So as far as you make your information, your data, to be rational, to be reasonable, like everything except things that are, of course, very difficult to believe or that seem to be too ad hoc, you can write down whatever you want and nobody's going to notice it because, as I say, as far as you make a very reasonable, rational, understandable, and as I say, non-needy commentary, you are going to go very much low profile and nobody's going to notice it. Okay, but yeah, you can make it up here, absolutely. And as I say, given that you don't have to quote your sources or something like that, it's absolutely possible to make up information. Yeah, is that fine?
Yeah, thank you, Professor.
My pleasure. Great. Any other question, guys, about this? Introduction, something? No? All right. Let's continue. What comes next? The body. And here's the most important part of the essay. Here is where you're going to defend your position. As I told you, this essay is not just about saying what you think. If it were the case, well, fantastic. We would just finalize the essay here, right? Because until this point, we have said what we believe, what our view is, what our perspective is. So if we were just requested to express what we think, we would stop there. But given that we are requested to defend it, that's the reason why we have the body. Okay? So as you know, for general purposes, the body is basically your defense of your position. It's how you're going to defend and remain very much, as I say, accounted and grounded in your position. Okay? So, well, what do you have to do? You're going to present, dear students, 2 arguments. Listen very well to me. 2 arguments. You're going to present 2 arguments and 2 illustrations to support your opinion. Okay? Here, once again, I have the different elements, sentences, connectors you have to use for every single paragraph of the body, and they are highlighted with different colors for you to see what. And when I wrote it here, my own essay, I follow everything. Notice the same colors, right? So those are the sentences and how to use them for you to follow this very easily. Okay? Here you have them. As I say, in this first paragraph, because notice that the body contains 2 paragraphs, right? This is the first paragraph, and we have a second paragraph. So let us discuss the first one. In the first paragraph, you're going to present your first argument, why you believe the way you believe, why you have that perspective, why you have that idea, why you have that position, and you're going to, as I say, defend it with that argument. And when you finalize talking about your argument, right next to that argument, you're going to write down an illustration. Okay, I'm going to show you this as we are reviewing this. So what is the first thing you write down? Is this connector first? Okay, given that this is your first argument, it's a very natural connector. You could also use firstly, right? If you wouldn't like to use first, that's the alternative, but let's say first. So here you have first, I also wrote, okay? And here I offer, as I say, my first argument for defending my position. What is my position? Let us remember, my position is that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. Therefore, I'm going to present here my first argument explaining why I have that opinion. What is my first argument? It's this one. Reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. I repeat, reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. What am I doing? Offering a very simple and straightforward argument, right? Sorry for the bell, people arriving home. So yeah, as I say, it's about giving a very short argument, a very short idea here, because let me tell you what you do not want. You do not want to offer long arguments. When you write down long arguments that nobody understands, this is going to complicate your matter. When you write down a very short argument that is compelling, that is direct, everybody's going to understand, and it's actually more powerful. You're going to convince people way better. Okay, so look at that; it's fantastic. So yeah, you get like this first argument here, okay? And when you finalize that argument, okay, dear students, the only thing you do next is to simply continue with more sentences complementing your argument, okay? Let me show you, for example, here, all right? So here you have this, for example, right? And you say, first, reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. And then here you have my complement of my argument. What is my complement? My complement is very simple. Is this one. As a matter of fact, when people have a book in their hands, they have not the trouble of moving on to the next thing without having understood the previous one. Namely, people can easily go back to the previous page and read again that section that may have not understood appropriately. Notice that this is simply a complement to my argument. It's not that I'm like expanding my argument or something. No, my argument is this one. It's a very simple sentence and short one, right? But notice that here I am complementing it with more things, with more information I consider to be appropriate to talk about. And as I say, there are no limitations here. You can literally talk about whatever. because it's a personal essay. It's about what you can contribute and offer. And notice that when I wrote, as a matter of fact, I am respecting the template. I'm not doing something different to what the template tells me or commands me to do, but I'm writing exactly what the template tells me. As a matter of fact, that's how you use it, to complement your argument. What comes later? Another sentence, another connector. According to apocryphal hearsay, you know what is apocryphal hearsay, right? Dear students, it's something that you have listened to, but you're not sure if it is true or if it is false, okay? For example, if your grandma came to you someday and told you, hey, you know that the war is going to end in 2 weeks, that's apocryphal hearsay, right? Because it's something that your people didn't know like very well, and you simply just write down, right? And you simply continue with the thing. So as I say, it's just a matter of thinking, you know, that, and just give me a second. All right, sorry. It's just people. Well, as I was mentioning it, apocryphal hearsay is basically when you listen to somebody and you just and when you just do not know if the information they presented to you is right or is wrong. So when you are writing down this sentence, you're basically admitting that. And when you're admitting that the information you write down, it's absolutely let's say untrustworthy somehow, but it's just something that goes in favor of your position. It's very easy because you can write down whatever you want right next to it, right? For example, according to apocryphal hearsay, notice how I did it. Just 5 of 30 words read by somebody are forgotten by the reader. And this is something that I made up. This is not something that at least consciously I know to be true. But given that with this connector, I am acknowledging, yeah, like the information I'm about to mention is not necessarily true. You can actually write whatever you want. And as I say, the thing here is that they are not testing your knowledge. They are testing how well you write down in English. So if you continue using good resources, they are going to value it. Okay? That's how you do it. Well, we'll continue. On top of that, and notice that I'm still following the template. On top of that, right? On top of that, and here I'm going to complement even more with more information, with more data, more, right? Whatever you can offer to the essay. As I said, you can just write down. Maybe, for example, if you don't want to write down a long essay, you can stop there. Of course, you can. But if you want to have a very good quantity of words and thus to get a very high result, of course, you want to continue writing more and more and more information, contributing more, telling more things, offering more information. So just continue, use these connectors and continue. On top of that, and I continue complementing my first argument, that is this one, right? I'm just complementing. Reading offers the opportunity to have people retaining more than they would in fact retain if merely exposed to video content. And this is all the argument. Basically, this is the first argument. What comes next? I told you, right? An illustration. Look at the connector I have here, exemplifying. So when you write down this word, exemplifying, in comma, you start with your illustration. And how must your illustration be? It must be very personal, okay? And very specific, as I have said before. So for example, what is my illustration in this case? Exemplifying. I always struggled as a child with watching the TV documentary my professors used as material for my philosophy classes. This is actually something that is very much true. When I was a child, I didn't understand philosophy. So I'm talking about my own life. You can replicate that. You can talk about yourself, talk about your family, your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. But as I said, talk about somebody in your illustrations, a person, and tell a story, basically. You don't want to talk about generic examples and say, people normally have problems struggling with philosophy. No, you want to concentrate on a particular individual, okay? So notice that I'm talking about my own experience as a child. I'm going to continue using the connectors here. Never was I more flabbergasted than that day. It's a very fancy manner to say that. I was never more surprised than that day. You want to use this because of course they value advanced vocabulary, right? Never was I more flabbergasted than that day when I got a book on the same topic written by the well-known philosopher William Lane Craig, where I did not have trouble to understand anymore. Notice that I'm still talking about my experience as a child. So when I got that book, my mind went through all that content very smoothly. Moreover, if I was not able to understand something in its fullness, then I could always stop for a while and that's to proceed. Very fine, right? So notice, this is how you want to write down your illustrations. I'm so sorry. You don't want to write down, as I say, generic things like talking about, well, people have problems with philosophy, and that's because when they start to read philosophy, they just get very good at it. No, you want to talk about yourself, a person, a friend, a family, relative, whatever. Okay, you want to talk about somebody in particular. And of course, your illustration must somehow embody what your argument was. What was my argument? That reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. And tell me if the illustration I have just written here doesn't reflect that. Of course it does, because I'm saying, yeah, wait, when I was a child, I didn't manage to understand things because I just watched documentaries. But when I switched to reading, I managed to understand easily because I could always stop at the pages I didn't understand and then to continue. So I'm illustrating my arguments by my own life. That's what you want to do, okay? And by the way, as I always tell you, you can make it up, okay? In this case, I didn't make this up. This is true. But if you don't have any illustration that reflects this in your own life or a family's relative life or a friend's life, make it up, okay? Just can do it, make it up, okay? Fantastic, and that's how you write down the first paragraph of your body. Any question about this paragraph, guys? How to use the connectors, the template? Please tell me. Questions? Lucia, Daniela, Jasmine, Lenny, Wa, Rodrigo, Karen. Any question about this?
Teacher, it's not about the paragraph, but do you recommend to write did not, for example, instead of didn't?
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, the question is about contractions, right? And I would
Yes.
definitely, yes, you're very good. That's a very good question, actually. And the thing is, I would definitely recommend you guys not to use contractions, okay? First of all, for words quantity purposes, because you want to write down as more words as you can. And of course, by writing complete sentences without contractions, you can do that very easily. Now, apart from that, as of course, you know, as English learners, contractions are informal. And although this essay it's personal, I admit you could use contractions and not to make it feel as if you were too informal because it's a personal essay. Even although that's the case, better if you just write down very formally, right? Because we want to demonstrate we are professionals. So avoid contractions, write down complete sentences. And if you can avoid, as I say, any contraction, fantastic. But if at some point you have an aesthetic purpose for your contraction because you feel that it just looks very weird when you write a complete sentence, well, in that case, you could use a contraction if you, as I say, consider it is adequate for aesthetic purposes. But apart from that, you just have to write down complete sentence, okay?
Thank you, teacher.
My pleasure, Daniela. So any other question, guys, about this paragraph? Anything that I could clarify here?
Yes, teacher. Are there any a specific number of sentences for each paragraph, or it depends on us?
Yeah, it absolutely depends on you, because as I tell you, you are the one who decides how many words you have to write. As I told you, you have a minimum of 300. So of course, you just want to write down 300. You could just stop here, for example, and then continue to your illustration, right? Because notice how many words this essay contains. I'm gonna select it all. In this case, I wrote 485. It's a very long essay. So if you just want to write down 300, 350, well, you will have to look at the sentences number by yourself and to decide, right? Okay, so if I write down 3 sentences here, 2 sentences there, fantastic. I'm gonna have a very good essay with an adequate quantity of words for me. So you say, okay, great, I'm going to remain with it. But normally writing 2 sentences, 3 sentences, you're going to come up with an essay of at least 300 words and normally more than that. It's always possible to write down 2 sentences for each part, let's say, and you continue. 2 sentences, next connector. 2 sentences, next connector. And trust me that if you do that, if you do that consistently, essays are normally going to have 300 words, 350 words. So it's a very good quantity, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
My pleasure. Any other question, guys, here? Questions? Okay. So,
teacher, I have a question.
Oh yes, tell me, please, Karen.
Teacher, we need to add an example about our experience. it's something that we must to do, or it's something that it's good if we do that.
Yeah, I think it's a must, definitely, because what you want to do is to offer an essay that somehow open up, um, in which you open up yourself to your reviewer. You don't want to write down an essay that is generic, because I think that all of you want to go for a very high qualification, right? And notice that, let's say 80% of people, what they are going to do instead of writing this type of illustrations, they're just going to say, for example, right? People at the age of 5 years or something normally struggle with mathematics, for example, because they just watch videos on YouTube. But nonetheless, when they change and switch into mathematical books, they are completely new and they start to understand that topic very easily. So people are going to write down in illustrations like that one. Nonetheless, scarcely any test taker writes down into illustration story like the one I'm presenting to you. An illustration that is very easy to remember because it's talking about a particular story about yourself, about your friends, about your girlfriend, your boyfriend. So if you do so, you're going to stand out from that very generic pool of applicants and test takers. So if you do this, it's going to be fantastic, trust me. But of course, you can just, if you don't feel comfortable with telling stories, with illustrating this personally, you can certainly just write down an illustration that is generic. And well, that is of course going to be your decision and your style at the end, right? But yeah, I would definitely recommend you to write down illustrations that are personal and very specific. Okay, great guys. Well, so I was telling you, if you understood this, fantastic, because what is the second paragraph? It's exactly the same, but with a second argument, of course, okay, and a second illustration that are different to the first one. What is our connector for the second paragraph? Furthermore, además, right? You could use secondly if you want as well. That's changeable. Furthermore, the content to be found in books does not distract people from the paramount idea. This is my second argument. The content to be found in books does not distract people from the paramount idea. That's what you have to say. It's your second argument. In this case, I came up with this one. It's not very clever. It's not a fantastic argument. It's just something. So remember that. You don't have to write down genius arguments or something. Here, eclectic knowledge is unnecessary. Just write down whatever that comes to your mind. And if you are very good at telling stories, if you're very good at complimenting things, it's just going to turn out very good. Okay, don't have to be a very good and clever argument every single time. Just whatever comes to your mind. Okay, so this is my argument. What do I do next? Well, to complement, as we did in the first paragraph. What connector am I going to use? In fact, notice how I use it. In fact, this is to be one of the more, and here is the must. I think this is the old version. One of the most illustrious characteristics of books when compared to the TV. Namely, they always stay attached to the topic and does not take you out of notion with music, lights, or any other effect. What am I doing? I'm complementing, right? All this is complement and just complementing. This is my argument, and here I'm, well, complementing with more sentences, more things that I consider to be relevant. Just write down. What's more, should somebody want to see how the TV is so destructive when compared to books, he could look to the fact that TV documentaries are not considered educational material anymore, but mere entertainment. All this represents my second argument. As I say, complemented with more sentences and things that I have to say, that I have to argue in favor of my position, and that's it. What comes next? The second illustration. In this case, of course, trying to exemplify and embody my second argument. So what connector am I going to use? To illustrate, comma, and notice how I use it. To illustrate, my sister has said to me that every single time she has watched a documentary about artists, it was not because she actually wanted to learn about music. Actually, all she wanted to do was to observe the incredible costumes utilized in that documentary. Plus, she started to watch them in order to follow the most recent trending. Indeed, this is a great indicator to observe that TV merely turns away people's attention from real knowledge and learning. So look at it. It's very simple, but in this case, by the way, fake illustration, because this has never happened to me. My sister and I have never talked about documents or documentaries, sorry, or we've never discussed if we believe documentaries are entertainment or actual knowledge and informative means or something. No, we've never discussed this. So what am I doing? I'm making up, right? I'm making up my illustration because it's possible. This is not an example about your life, right? So it's an example about how good you write down English. So you can just write out about whatever comes to your mind at the end. So in this case, I'm writing this illustration, okay? And what I'm doing is, hey, I told you that people normally watch documentaries because they want to be part of the most recent trending, and they just want to follow new, as I say, new challenges and new things on the internet. That's the reason why they watch documentaries. Nobody watches them because they actually want to learn something. How am I reflecting that? By telling this story. My sister has told me that she never watched documentary because she wanted to learn something. She watched documentaries because she considered that was a fantastic manner to entertain herself, to look at entertaining and very, I don't know, recreative costumes, visual effects, music, whatever, right? So I'm just talking about that. I'm illustrating my argument with this particular story, and it's very powerful, right? Because it's personal, talks about a particular individual. You can do that. Just tell stories. Try to improve your skills at telling stories, even if they are not true, of course. And trust me that this is going to be a piece of cake for you, okay? And yeah, and that's all the body. Second argument and second illustration. You do this every single time using the same connectors. The only thing that changes, of course, is the content. You're not going to write down essays like this one, right? Because the topic is always going to be different, but the connectors are the same. The idea is the same. The concepts are the same, right? So yeah, this is how you write down the body. Any question, guys, about the body? So that we can move on to the conclusion, that is the last part. Any question
Yes.
about
The next sentence next to furthermore is like the main argument, right? And the
Yes.
other sentences are just complement.
Exactly. You're very
Oh,
right. It's a very
okay.
short and very clear argument, and the rest is complementation. Here I'm just complementing what I said before, so that the reviewer has more content to process, to digest, and of course that gives the impression that I know what I'm talking about, right? So better if you just write down, as I say, more complementing and more complement with more sentences, and everything depends on two different factors: how many words you want to write down and how much you can offer, right, to the essay. If you can offer and contribute with a lot of information, do it. Why not? Yeah, that's the thing.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Great. So yeah, that's it. That's the body. And yes, I say no questions are offered here. I have the last part. That is just well, personally, I believe this to be an ornamental thing, but I think it's good. What is the conclusion here? Normally, dear students, you're gonna find out if you go to any YouTube channel stuff, people say, write down a summary of your essay. And they say, well, to conclude, I said that it's better to read books than watching movies because, and they just make a summary. Not very effective, predictable, my opinion, and generic. What can you do instead? Offer a recommendation as a matter of conclusion. Let me show you. To round up, this is your connector, right? I'd like to say that it's advisable that parents educate their children to read at least 2 times what they watch on the TV. This way, they could secure their children a good education and not to make them people addicted to simple entertainment. Notice that this is a very different conclusion. It's very special because instead of summarizing what I just said, which of course will be repetitive, as I said, generic, what people are waiting you to do, you are gonna surprise them in a very positive manner by offering a word of counsel, a word of recommendation here, a word of advice. So, and this is very powerful, I think, because when you do this, it's as if you were establishing that you have defended this topic so well that now you have the moral or ethical freedom, let's say, to recommend people to do things. And because that's the case, the conclusion as it is presented right here, I think it's very powerful, okay, very compelling. So as I say, always write down a matter of advice, a word of recommendation, a word of counseling, of course, according to the topic you just discussed. Imagine that your topic was vacations, right? What season is better to go and have vacations? And you offer the response that it was better to go in summer. So the entire essay was how good was summer for you to go and have vacations on. And then in your conclusion, you will write down, to round up, I'd like to recommend you to come to Punta Cana in summer because it contains these benefits, right? Because you will write down an essay offering a word of advice related to the topic you just wrote in your entire essay. By doing so, you offer innovative conclusion, you offer a very, well, I would say compelling end, and you are making something surprising to the reviewer, okay? So please follow this recommendation. Just write down a word of advice that is related to your topic, of course, and finalize the essay there. You don't need to say anything else. Any question, guys, about this conclusion? How you have to do it? No questions? No?
Teacher, I have a question.
Okay,
We
yes,
have
please.
to write only 2 arguments, or it can be more.
Okay, yeah, you can write down more, certainly, if you wish to do so. And well, if that were the case, you could just repeat, let's say, the same connectors. You could repeat some of the sentences as well. And yeah, you can absolutely write down more than 2 arguments. Normally, you would like to write down 2 so you can, for example, finalize this essay. When I wrote this essay, I took like 20 minutes writing it. And then I used the remaining 10 minutes in order to review it, to evaluate my orthography, my grammar, because of course I didn't want to present an essay that was very long, 485 words, but a disaster with regard to orthography and grammar. So I checked it out, and if you are able to write down more than 2 arguments and still remain with that consistency in your orthography and grammar, well, fantastic. Write down more than 2 arguments. It will be an excellent idea. Yeah.
Thank you, teacher.
Fantastic. My pleasure. Great, guys. So any question apart from this? Any other thing that I could clarify? Please tell me. Any question on this essay? Okay. So great. If there are no questions, then tomorrow we are going to practice for this, okay? We're going to write down, all of you are going to write down essays following this template and pattern. So please, I would recommend you to memorize it, okay? Of course, on the exam, you cannot bring a paper with you and to have it there so that you copy it. So you have to memorize it, or at least to have an idea of how to write it. So please memorize it for tomorrow's class. And we're going to practice together the entire class, okay, tomorrow. So yeah, before you go, please help me with your kind responses to this traditional poll I am displaying here. And please listen to your names, okay, before you go, so that I can have your assistance. And if you have any other question or commentary, please let me know. So it's here present, our dear Mariela or Astrid Mariela. No? What about Rodrigo Omar? Present?
Yes, teacher. I'm gonna write right now.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Fantastic. What about Andres Uribe or David Uribe? Okay. Let's continue with Karen Silvana. Karen over here. Okay. What about Daniela Crespo?
Present, teacher.
Thank you very much, Daniela. What about Dayam Romina? What about Jasmine Camila?
Present, teacher.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. And let's finalize with this other group. It's here present Lenny Jimenez.
Present, teacher.
Thank you very much, Lenny. What about Yvonne Cana? Right, what about Maya Mariel? Right. What about Flavia Montaña?
Present.
Thank you very much, Flavia. What about Karen Ginelli?
Present, teacher.
Thank you very much, Karen. And finally, Lucia Suleiman.
Present, teacher.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Well, thank you very much, guys. See you tomorrow in order to finalize this. And well, I'm going to be seeing you tomorrow to practice. Okay, have a wonderful night and see you later.
Bye, teacher.
Bye bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye,
You.
teacher.
See you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
teacher.